Let me welcome you on this at this point and say that this is Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro. As I did indicate, we have two key, very crucial conversations to have. One has to do with the economy. The economy is what makes all of us. When we wake up every day, we have to spend. We need to look at how to make money. And we need to check our deficit or, in some cases, our surpluses. And that's, if you situate that within the context of how a country is run, it only makes sense that our finance minister, who raises money and spends the money on our behalf, comes to account to us how he's done that. And so it's about the mid-year budget review. Now, also remember that there's some context to this. Now, the IMF bailout or the IMF program which we're pursuing, according to some economists, is going to start in full swing. But some conditions has already kickstarted, the conditions that are supposed to be, that's been laid out in order for us to be able to, like conditions we're supposed to meet in order for us to meet the second tranche of the amount that we're expecting the IMF to give us, is all going to kick in when the finance minister presents the mid-year budget review. So without much ado, I'm going to go to Mr. Joe Jackson. But before that, let me also say that Cecilia Dapa, or the Dapa Gate, is still a developing story. We've told you about how the special prosecutor has moved in, has arrested her. Some interrogations are still ongoing. It has to do with how did you get, or how did you make that amount of money, or where did you get that amount of money from? Now, nobody, I haven't sat on this show to make any judgment, to pass any judgment, and so on. But we're asking the legitimate question that a lot of Ghanaians are asking, which is, where did you get the money from? How did you get the money? And that's what the special prosecutor is looking at. But more importantly, we've also heard, I mean, whilst the special prosecutor is doing, its work, we've heard all kinds of theories and narratives that are meant to justify the source of wealth of Madame Cecilia Dapa. So we'll be examining some of those narratives to see whether it passes muster. It's extremely important. We'll look at that. And also, when the lawyers join us, we'll be asking them whether there's any law on illicit acquisition of wealth and whether that is prosecutable, whether that is justiciable in our court. We'll also be getting some explanation or some, analysis of that. And then also, why does special prosecutor show an interest in this? Is it because it's a suspected case of corruption or a corruption-related activity? What is it? So these are the issues I'll be looking at on the show today. You don't want to miss it. You'll see the WhatsApp number, again, displayed on the screens. We need to know what you think about the two issues that we have raised on the show. So 055-300035. So it is what it is. Mr. Joe Jackson, good morning. It's good to have you.
It's good to be here again.
My viewers miss you. I mean, they've been asking when is Mr. Joe Jackson going to show up. I said, well, he only shows up, first of all, when he has the time, because he's a very busy man, and also, two, when it becomes extremely crucial for you to show up on the show. So we're always happy to have you here.
No, I'm always
But how are you doing, sir?
I'm good.
Wonderful.
Good. Feeling excited.
Wonderful. Now, if any of your workers, or say your son, or any of those persons that you're constantly teaching and imparting knowledge, and it comes to you and says, but what is this whole talk about a mid-year budget review, and why is it important? I don't know what kind of explanation would you give the person, and what is it that you intend to present to us this morning?
Okay, first of all, right, the people of Ghana, right, got the Minister of Finance and the government come up and say to us that this is how much we spend and this is how much we expect to receive. This is what we want to do for the year. This is done usually around at the end of the year before that, so November, December.
Right.
But in truth, halfway through, we want to ask them, how's it going? Are you doing what you said you wanted to do? Because if we wait till the end of the year, things may have gone bad. Also, it's a projection. They may want more money, less money, we don't know. So that gives them an opportunity, the Minister of Finance and the government, an opportunity to come back to us through our representatives to say, This is what has been happening.
Okay.
But there's this year in particular, it is of absolute importance.
I see. Why?
Okay. Remember what happened last year. The economy crashed. We were in all sorts of deep trouble. And at the end of the year, we were now just waiting for an IMF bailout to happen. And so the first half of this year, really, we were in limbo.
Okay.
It was dark. We're looking for a bailout. Conditions were very volatile. At one time, we're down to less than 3 weeks of imports in a country like ours. Inflation, boom, went through the roof. The CD was all over the place. So, listen, there were all sorts of issues.
So the economy went south.
South, it went to the pole.
I see. That's more serious.
And so what really then happened is, this year is important because the first half of the year, nothing really happened.
Okay.
Apart from the IMF, listen, there was the domestic debt exchange, there was the bailout, all manner of issues took place. So now we want to say, okay. Minister of Finance, come and tell us where we are now that you got the IMF bailout signed.
Okay.
And what to expect for the rest of the year.
Right.
Literally, is there light at the end of this tunnel?
Okay. So your presentation will be seeking to answer this question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right? And that's why I'm starting with this picture, which says, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Or are we doomed? Now, like I said, there are a number of key areas where it's going to be very problematic. And I'm highlighting those key areas to say, listen, I'm hoping that the Minister of Finance will give us certain answers to the issues I'm giving here, and even of some of the solutions I've proffered here. Because if we don't fix this light at the end of the tunnel, literally, is going to get covered. That's what's going to happen. And I'll start with the first one. Inflation. Inflation is killing us. Okay. And I just took 3 items that we all use. Frozen chicken, rice, frital, nothing fancy. Right? And when you look at these items, when you think back, beginning of 2022 to now, the prices have gone haywire. I can't feed my family. It is expensive. Now food is so expensive. And what is happening? Listen. Inflation is stubbornly high. Despite all we've done, inflation has just come down from the 50s to the 40s. Light at the end of the tunnel will bring inflation down much, much more. Why is inflation not coming down? I'm offering one of the issues is that, how are we fighting inflation? Bank of Ghana says, I'm increasing rates. They've been increasing rates and increasing rates and increasing rates. And yet it doesn't happen. Each time they go for an MPC, Monetary Policy Committee meeting, they take the rate higher. Hey, forgive me, but it doesn't seem to work. And I think it doesn't seem to work because the issue is to do with food. And it's to do with the cost of food at our farm gates and the cost of food at our markets. In fact, the Statistical Service tests that all the time, that it is food that is causing our problems. So please, why can't we just fix food, fix the pricing, fix the distribution? I also think, and we will discuss that interestingly in the second half of your program today.
Okay.
There's a lot of money outside the banking system.
You mean there's a lot of hoarding of cash?
Hoarding of cash in various forms.
Okay.
And we'll discuss it in detail, but think about it. All through last year and this year, what has happened? Those who held cash have had no haircuts. Those who've taken their money into the banking system have had haircuts. So there's no incentive to keep money
within the financial system.
Within the financial system. Right? And if you juxtapose that with our financial sector cleanup, where people again got their money locked up, hey, There's so much cash outside the banking system that, in truth, monetary policy won't work.
I see.
So we want to, I'll be looking out in the budget for the minister to tell us, how are you going to bring down this inflation? What are you doing? And what are you going to do? Just keep on increasing monetary policy rates? I doubt. That's one issue. The CD. The CD now seems to be cool, isn't it?
Well, it's enjoying some relative stability.
Relative stability.
Yes.
I have news for you. That stability is fake.
How do you mean it's fake?
I'll tell you why it's fake.
The dollar is still 11 point something, like 11.25%.
It's fake because that stability won't last.
Really?
Yes.
It's artificial?
Let me explain to you. Since the 18th of December, 2022, the government hasn't paid any foreign bills.
That's true.
Zero.
That's true.
So what has happened? The demand is low, isn't it?
Yes.
Good. The country itself, because of all the challenges we are having, we are not importing as much.
That's true.
So demand is even lower, isn't it?
Yep.
Now, added to that, our single biggest import is fuel, right? For everything from your vehicle to grid coal to VRA, whatever, ECG.
Yeah.
Power. The prices of fuel on the world market have been particularly kind.
Right.
Right? So the demand for our dollar on the CD for dollars is being low.
Okay.
That demand won't sit low forever.
I see.
Eventually, we're going to have to start paying some of our bills. As soon as we start paying some of our bills, the pressure is going to come back. Also, we're going to enter into the last quarter where there's going to be winter. Fuel traditionally goes up, and then so the price of fuel will go up because consumption goes up in all the countries in the temperate zones. What will happen? Pressure will come back. So
that
the pressure will resume after September.
So it will be short-lived.
Yes. But there's a way out. The IMF is going to give us a second tranche.
Yes.
That tranche is raw, hard foreign currency, which will give us some relief.
Right.
If we miss that deadline, we are in trouble.
Which is September this year.
Yes. Because if we get that deadline, cash flows in life is a bit cool. Right? So I'll be watching out on what assurances are we going to get about meeting that deadline and getting the cash in.
So will the mid-year budget review give you sufficient indication as to whether we are on course to meeting the conditionalities that we need to meet in order for us to attract the second tranche of the...
Fantastic.
So you would be looking out for that?
I'll be looking out for that. In any case, the minister can't avoid that. The bailout is the biggest thing that has happened this year.
Right.
Where our finances are concerned.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So let's move on. Domestic debt. I tell you, that is a grenade with a pin pulled out. Except that we are still holding it. We haven't dropped it yet.
In other words?
You see, domestic debt exchange. We say that, we can't pay 19% per annum. We are too broke. So we will reduce all of you to around 11%, 12% per annum. That's the fact, isn't it? True. That was the haircut we all got.
Yep.
And we will stretch it for even more years than expected, isn't it?
True.
Yes. Because we said we were broke. And we needed to do that so that we could now start to pay our debts.
Right.
Sounds good. What have we done? We are now buying treasury bills that are denominated for 91 days, that are denominated for 180 days and maximum 365 days. And we are going at it and using it to finance long-term expenditure. what where the treasury bills are. Treasury bill rates are between 24 and 29%, almost 30% now. So what are we doing to ourselves? We couldn't pay 19% for bonds that were even long term. Now we say we'll be able to pay short-term bonds for between what? 90 days and 365 days tomorrow. It's a time bomb. In the first half of the year, because of the rising cost, we've incurred another 7.7 billion in our debt service. And that is due, short term. What are we saying? The rates are too high. And the danger is that if we continue financing it from treasury bills, right? All that will happen is that all the gains of the domestic debt exchange that we got will be reversed. Listen.
So we're basically cutting our nose to spite our face.
It's worse than that. We are robbing
Peter to pay Paul.
And not even paying Paul.
Well, that's true. I mean, based on the data you've just
because you
just showed.
One of the critical things is that we've got to cut our coat to meet our size or your cloth, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Now we've still kept expenditure quite high. We've refused to reduce the size of government, so we are needing to borrow more and more in T-bills, right? And we are borrowing at a high cost.
But the government has explained several times that these are critical expenditure. They can't do anything about it.
But who says it's critical? Of course, salaries are critical, but you must cut salaries because you must cut the size of government.
Agenda 111 is critical. We need these health facilities.
I disagree with Agenda 111 being critical.
Okay, let's not sidetrack.
Let's stay on this. Whatever it is, you are now piling up debt hand over fist in T-bill costs. In March this year, something happened. The government says, "Oh, you know what? I won't do this anymore." So guess what? It rejected the bids and asked them to rebid because at that time the rates had hit as high as 34%. What happened? When the bids were resubmitted, the rates were dropped to 19%, right? And even then, they were oversubscribed. Please, you want to do that again? I'm saying even if you need to borrow, why are these high rates? After all, every time you go, you are oversubscribed, which means people are offering you more money than you need, right? That should cause it to fall, the price to fall. Basic demand and supply, economics 101. So why do we insist on buying these treasury bills at these ridiculously high rates?
Makes sense. I understand.
Even if you have to borrow,
yeah.
Why at this rate? Why not at 19%? In any case, we know that the long-term rates that the government is targeting is between 13%. After all, the cocoa bills that were restructured a few weeks ago, when they brought down from 31% all the way down to 13%.
True.
So why are we doing T-bills at this rate? Cocoa bills were for 180 days. Something is wrong.
And what you're saying is that the reason why we must be concerned about the high rate at which government is borrowing is because it's going to come back to us to pay.
Yes, it's not just the high rate. You see, there are two concerns.
Right.
They're borrowing T-bills to finance long term. That is a cause of worry.
Right.
But the bigger cause of worry is the rates. The rates are way too high. And if we can't pay at...
But let's come back to the first concern. Is it because of the fear that we are increasingly crowding out the private sector? Is that your first source of worry with the long-term, borrowing borrowing through treasury bills are long-term, for long-term periods?
Oh, listen, also the private sector, we've been crowded out.
Okay, so that really is not the concern.
You can take it home. The private sector has been crowded out. The government is doing all the borrowing.
Right. So what really is the issue with your first concern?
My first concern is this. at the rate which we are borrowing, and at these high rates, we are piling up more debt.
Okay, we're racking up more debts.
And we are going to soon get to a point where we'll start to reverse the gains that we made from the domestic debt exchange.
Okay. We'll be back to square one.
I'll be square one. If we get back to square one, what will it only mean? We have to do some sort of haircut process again.
But the creditors aren't complaining. They are fine with it. Because after all that has happened with the DDP, people are still lending to government because the rates are attractive. 24%, 25%, like 29% is attractive.
Forgive me, right?
Yes.
If we agree that rates are a perception of risk,
right?
Walk into your average bank today, ask to do a 91-day fixed deposit, which is like a T-bill.
Yes.
The bank will offer you, guess what? Highest 15%.
But that's always been a concern between the spread between lending and...
No, the banks cannot give you a haircut. The government can give you a haircut.
Okay, that's fine. so I understand. I get it.
If you come to Delex, I have to give you a rate at which I can support all my life.
True.
Right?
True.
The government is giving rates. After all, it may not even be there to pay.
Okay, that's fine. Point well made.
The energy sector.
Okay.
In another troublesome area. Listen. The debt is increasing. It's not coming down.
What debt is increasing?
You see, when we sell, when we generate power, for every 100 cedis of power we generate, we don't recover the full amount.
True. There's no full cost recovery.
We don't do full cost recovery.
Right.
So each time, on each iteration, we are generating debt. And the debt is rising. In fact, there are credible estimates now from those who know a lot more about the power sector than I do, that we're actually recovering less in dollar terms than we've ever done. So listen, ECG needs an overhaul. It's only negotiable. ECG does need an overhaul. Because even though they are recovering and doing all this, what I call bubonya, all this stuff going on, we are still in trouble. And for what we owe with the IPPs, we must sit down and negotiate. We can't pay.
They're threatening to shut down by the end of, I think by a week or two,
so we must,
if we don't pay the money. It's about $2.5 billion.
Yes, but so we must sit down and negotiate. This one, we can't do it the way we did the domestic debt exchange.
Right.
We have no leverage over them. All they have to do is flip the switch.
And we're in darkness.
And we are in darkness. So please, we've got to negotiate. We can't do this. As for the financial sector, trouble don't come. Remember that the domestic debt exchange wrought havoc on our balance sheets. You saw the losses that were racked up.
True.
Good. Cocoa bills were the insult to the injury. Because who holds cocoa bills? Financial institutions. Right? So now, the sector needs support. And the stock of the Stability Fund, but again, it's not actually, we need to know the full modalities, whether it's been fully funded, and how we're going to access it going forward.
It's still work in progress.
It's still work in progress. Yeah. I'm hoping that the minister will tell us something.
Okay.
Otherwise, our financial.
So basically, where are we with the establishment of the stabilization or the creating of the stabilization fund?
We know that the plan is there.
Yeah.
We know that there's some idea to borrow from the World Bank, etc. But we need to find out more.
Okay.
Has the money been given?
Yeah.
Is it ready?
Yeah.
Can we access it?
Who even qualifies to access it?
Thank you.
Okay.
So Moro, before I go on, last sector, cocoa.
Okay.
Ghana was built on cocoa, isn't it?
Yep.
Cocoa produces huge amounts for this economy. Cocoa is actually our biggest single foreign exchange earner. And yet, what have we done to cocoa? It's neglected. It's neglected. It's subsumed under agric. Cocoa contributes more to this economy than the aviation sector, than the railway sector, than all these other sectors that have ministers, full-time ministers. And yet, we've subsumed cocoa under the Ministry of Agric. One sector that, even though I say cut down the size of that I wouldn't mind, I'd like to see, is maybe create a cocoa ministry. We need a complete overhaul. The cocoa board is so inefficient, right? And has been racking up losses for the last 3 years that it has reported.
Right.
In any case, it hasn't reported its accounts for 2021 and 2022. The last reported one was 2020. And yet the losses are growing and mounting because cocoa board is doing everything, including things that have nothing to do with cocoa. Listen, we've got to fix cocoa. Cocoa is what this country depends on for foreign currency. If we don't fix this, our problems will get worse. Moro, I'll wrap this up. These are the areas which this light in the tunnel could get covered and then we wouldn't be able to see. Inflation. You got to fix it. The CD, got to make sure you meet your targets. Otherwise, the CD will start taking flight again. The cost of domestic debt, that grenade in T-bills, let's fix it. Energy sector. You can't negotiate with the guys the way we did with the domestic debt. If they flip the switch, we are in darkness. They don't have to picket at the Ministry of Finance. The financial sector could bring everything tumbling down. Let's get that stabilization fund activated. And as for cocoa sector, it's what Ghana was built on. Let's fix it.
So basically, this is to establish the state in which we are, as far as the economy is concerned.
Picking key areas.
Like taking key areas. Now, having done that, when the finance minister appears in Parliament on Tuesday, what would broadly or generally be your expectations in just a few minutes before I invite our other guests to join us? So what are your expectations on Tuesday?
On Tuesday, first and foremost.
Because there's been a lot of talk about, for instance, reviewing some of the taxes and that we don't need them. Let's talk about, how do you call it, this tax which, the COVID levy, for instance. Some say let's scrap it because we don't have COVID anymore. So that's what I'm asking about your expectations.
I'll be honest with you. We need every CD of revenue. We need every CD of revenue that we can get. And so, listen, anybody who is expecting some significant reduction in taxes, I'm sorry. You are living in what do you call it? Cantata land.
I see.
It won't happen.
There won't be any scrapping of any tax or levy.
As for scrapping, it wouldn't happen. Watch out that we don't even bring in new taxes, huh?
Is that the remotest possibility?
There is a remote possibility.
Because we're still not meeting our revenue targets.
Because you're still not meeting our revenue targets.
But the question would be...
And we are racking up
more debt. So for us...
And most important, we haven't reduced the size of government.
I see. So you'll be watching out to hear what the finance minister will be saying. But for corporate people, I mean, is there any particular... Do you have any specific expectation in terms of what you think? Because the private sector is supposed to be the engine of growth.
For corporates, they've done to us, we are now dead goods. The taxes have been increased, levied, etc. There's nothing more that can happen. We will just listen, look at these areas and make sure it doesn't get worse. But for corporates, really, I have zero expectations out of this half-year review.
Interesting.
I don't expect any relief.
Right. All right. So, Mr. Joe Jackson, thank you very much. Mr. Joe Jackson is not gone yet. He'll still be with us because he has a bite on Cecilia or the Dapa Gate.